Meanwhile, Russia has been hit very hard by coronavirus. In an exclusive CNN interview, President Putin's spokesman, who himself tested positive for the virus, is defending Russia's handling of the pandemic and questions about why the mortality rate is only a fraction of other countries. CNN's Matthew Chance pressed for answers.
It's accused of hiding the true extent of Russia's coronavirus pandemic, of abandoning exhausted doctors to its ravages, using the lockdown to crack down on dissent. But the Kremlin's chief spokesman is now defending his country's coronavirus response.
Back in March, President Putin said the situation in Russia was under control, in fact, better than in other countries. But within a few weeks, it had suffered the second highest number of coronavirus infections in the world. What went wrong?
Well, actually, nothing has went wrong except the coronavirus itself. Our country uses the maximum possible amount of tests for coronavirus. And the more you test, the more you detect.
It's not just the number of viral infections. It's the fact that the mortality rate as well is remarkably low. And it's sort of added to this suspicion that Russia is somehow been manipulating the facts, manipulating the figures, perhaps in order to prevent the Kremlin from being criticised.
No, I don't agree with that assessment. Have you ever thought about the possibility of Russia's healthcare system being more effective?
Is that your explanation?
Giving an opportunity for more people to stay alive.
In fact, the strain on Russian healthcare has been one of the most alarming features of Russia's pandemic. Across the country, doctors complaining of poor conditions, lack of personal protection equipment and unpaid wages. There was even a spate of mysterious plunges of doctors out of high windows, perhaps a sign of desperation with their plight. There have been protests too, rare in Russia, but still worrying for the Kremlin, as approval ratings for President Vladimir Putin sink to all-time lows.
How concerned are you that this pandemic has dented the popularity of President Putin, perhaps irreparably?
President Putin has stated numerous times that he didn't care about his personal rating. That in politics, if you are a real statesman, you shouldn't think about your rating, because if you think only about your rating, you won't be able to take responsible decisions.
Decisions like when to ease restrictions. Despite a stubbornly high infection rate, Moscow is now lifting its unpopular lockdown ahead of a key public vote to extend Vladimir Putin's rule. Maybe the Kremlin does care about ratings after all.
Well, Alison, and of course the figures that have just come in over the past few minutes continue to support that idea that the coronavirus infection rate in Russia is very stubborn indeed. Another 8,500 nearly new infections over the course of the past 24 hours, bringing to nearly 500,000 people in the country that have got the virus. It's still one of the big epicentres of this pandemic.